Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. We are here. Lots of games last night. I think it was 12 in the NHL. I was at one of them, watched another one. So it was a double header for me. Getting some snow in the Buffalo area.
We got some snow today, too, but it all melted already.
Yeah, it was okay. It's not bad when it's the light, fluffy snow because a good gust of wind blows it all away. And that's what we got today. But the previous storm that we had, it was that thick, wet stuff.
I know this stuff sucked, but you have a choice. When you get that, I have the brush and the scraper, but a lot of times you can't get to your total roof on that. So I end up using as one of the house brooms and just brooming off the car. But once you broomed it off, it was fine. So
yeah, I just have to mention this before we do our pre-show. Like I said, Funky in the chat said is my favorite character from the X-Men movies, Jean Grey, which is hilarious. I do like Terry's GG&G says, does that mean that Mike's favorite male actor is Scott DeGray?
Oh.
I don't know who Scott DeGray is.
I don't either, but that's good.
No, I'll give you another one though. My favorite former Leaf defenseman is Dale DeGray.
Don't remember him.
Played for Calgary, I think, and then he was traded to leave. Smaller defenseman, played ward number 3, I believe. He was there for a couple years, but I'm going with the Gray thing. Joel Gray from
Cabaret.
From Cabaret. Aaron Gray
from Dirty Dancing.
From Buck Rogers in the 25th Century.
Oh, wait. So Aaron Gray. Okay. Yeah, there's Buck Rogers, but then there's also Joel Gray's daughter from Dirty Dancing.
Oh, Jennifer Gray.
Jennifer Gray.
Yeah, no. Aaron Gray was Colonel Deering on Buck Rogers in the.
Oh, I remember. I watched.
Believe me, I remember those Golden jump pants. Let's start. That was an education for a 12-year-old, guys. All right, let's start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
Well, we woke up. I did get a text around a little after midnight, but I went to sleep already. And the text was the Yankees were insane and signed Gerrit Cole to a 9-year contract. Okay, so my first response on Twitter was, in 9 years, robots will be playing baseball. So because no one's going to be able to afford humans anymore.
Right.
And that's going to be the first part of it. But you and I were talking offline, and I said, I'm thinking it's going to, he's going to get offered 7, and you said, well, the Yankees will probably have to do 8. I think even you're probably surprised they went 9.
Well, because the Dodgers offered 8, apparently.
Okay.
So they, from what I've read, numerous reports, they were all in to the point that Hal Steinbrenner talked to Cole directly, that they brought, like they did with CC Sabathia, where they brought in Reggie back in 2009. They brought Andy Pettitte in because Cole was a Yankees fan going back to his young days. I guess he went to like 7 or 8 Yankee games. He's from California, so that meant like flying to New York and going to games. So, so. I mean, I knew that they were going to have to go all out and sign him to something. I don't think anybody was going to offer 9, but
what is he, 28 or 29?
He's 29.
29. So
there's an opt-out. There's an opt-out after 5 years, but more than likely, a pitcher at 34 years old is not going to opt out. But if he has 5 great years, he might.
Right. So there is a way he might opt out, but probably won't. And if he doesn't, those last 2 years, they're not going to be great. Everybody knows it. The Yankees know it too.
Sure. But hey, I have to say this because people are saying, "Oh, the big bad Yankees." Give me a frickin' break, because everybody is spending this kind of money. The Dodgers are spending this kind of money. The Red Sox have done it. It's a question of whether they'll be successful.
But that's a whole other show.
Yeah, but they will. I mean,
they have a payroll of over $200 million, but it's not still what it should be.
Right, but the whole point is that after next year, Ellsbury's contract drops off the books. That's over $20 million. The salaries of Paxton is a free agent. Tanaka is a free agent. Now that doesn't mean the Yankees aren't going to try to re-sign him. They might, but if they don't, they have a lot of young pitchers coming through the organization that with a 1-2 punch of Cole and Severino, they might have the luxury of being able to rely on those younger pitchers, and they can save some money that way. Plus,
actually, I take it back. The Mets are probably only going to be at $100 million this year. Sorry, not 200.
Right, and I have heard already, and we'll hear about this going into spring training. Oh, how big of a bargain it is, the DeGrom contract as opposed to the contract for Cole. And I'm like, but this is the way it is in all sports. I mean, okay, doesn't McDavid's 12.5 look like a bargain now compared to Marner getting 10.9 or Matthews getting 11.6? Because
of course.
Yeah, I mean that's the escalation of free agency and of contracts. You can't avoid that. So
and there's no way you know what's going to happen. DeGrom will get another kick at the can, and if he has 5 years like he's having now, he's going to get it on the back end anyhow.
Right. So it'll be interesting. I just know that that there's going to be that normal, hatred of the Yankees. The Yankees haven't signed any monster free agents in a long time.
No, but look, when they took on Giancarlo Stanton, that was a monster free agent,
and that was that was stupid. I said that at the time I didn't like it because he was a similar player to Judge. He wasn't as good as Judge. He was coming off his best year ever. Probably will never match that, and now he's had injury problems. So. The only good thing about that is with the injury problems, I'm sure they have insurance on that contract, so they're getting the money back.
You only get 75% back.
Right, but it's something.
I know.
And they were saying that the luxury tax rules may change with the new CBA, and I guess the new CBA for baseball could be after next year. Right. So that might be another factor here where the Yankees don't care if it's over the current luxury tax because the rules may change.
Look, the Yankees want to win. They haven't won lately, so they did what they did. I get it.
Yep. All right, let's start the show. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, December 11th, 2019.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. All right, we'll start with some of the games from last night, some interesting outcomes. Let's start with the game that I was at, Sabres and St. Louis Blues. The Sabres win 5-2. That score was extremely misleading, whereas the Blues gave up a goal 18 seconds into the game, bounced back. I thought dominated the second period, hit 3 goalposts, but then the Sabres take the lead late in the second. So it was one of those games where I think the team that played better up to a certain point was not the team that was leading. The Blues tied it up in the third and then had a defensive brain cramp where they let Jack Eichel walk right in front of the net. And
that was brutal.
Yeah, a guy with the talent of Eichel cannot be allowed to walk to the front of the net. Up until that point, I thought the Blues had played a pretty good game. Then it was.
You told me that they switched out Binnington for Jake Allen, and I don't get that.
Yeah, I mean, Jake Allen had a career, I think it was 6-1-1 record against Buffalo. And I was a little surprised it wasn't Binnington because Binnington was pulled after a period against Toronto on Saturday. And there was no reason to play Allen in terms of, because I don't think the Blues had played between Saturday and Tuesday. So you had 2 days rest. They went with Allen, I would assume because he had a good record against the Sabres, and he was brutal. I mean, the goal 18 seconds into the game was not great. The second goal where I think it was Johan Larsson, it was a shot from Bogosian that went off the backboards and went purposely wide, hit the backboards, came out the other side, and that was the play. You knew that, and he read it wrong, and he actually directed it into his own net. Jake Allen's just not a good goaltender. I mean, $4.3 million, and he's an average goalie at best.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really true, and I don't know why we don't know this yet, but maybe
they're stuck on that contract, Russ. That's the thing.
Yeah.
They can't move it. And they're probably just thinking, okay, let's make the best of a situation. We can play him 25 to 30 games, keep Binnington fresh, and play him here or there. And maybe they thought they could get away, since he had a good career record against the Sabres, they could get away with playing him. But I'll tell you right now, if he goes free agency after this year, I would be surprised if he gets anything more than like a Jonathan Bernier 2-year, $3 million contract. I don't think anybody has any confidence in him being a number one. He's a 1B or maybe a backup who gets, he'll be like a Khudobin or a Halak, an experienced backup who can play more games. But
I'm sure Leafs fans will love him. So, yeah, I agree.
No, thanks. Okay. The Montreal Canadiens win 4-1 over the Pittsburgh Penguins. Tristan Jarry's shutout streak was ended. I think it was like 100.
Over.
What's that?
I said it's over.
Yeah, it's over. 100. I think it was 188 minutes I saw, and then of course it ends, and he gives up 3 goals in 6 minutes. I didn't see that much of this game. I saw a little bit of highlights, but Montreal right now. I mean, they're coming out of that long. They came out of that 8 losses in 9 games streak. They've won a couple games in a row. Now I think they play Ottawa tonight. So Caden Primo will get in there because Price played last night. With this team, with all these teams in the Atlantic Division, these back-to-backs and the points they get out of their backups are going to be extremely important because the race is just so tight.
No, I agree. I did see a weird sort of push from Eric Engels on Twitter saying that, hey, I've spoken to Shea Weber. He actually talked about himself, which is true. Shea Weber never does. He's having a great year. I think he could be, a Norris finalist. And it's a shame the way the Norris is. And then he brought up like Erik Karlsson, how he won it. And it's like, dude, no matter what you think, John Carlson's winning the Norris if he doesn't get hurt. He's winning it because he's going to end up with like 80 points. Shea Weber is going to have, 45, 50. He might have 20 goals.
Right.
Great comeback year for him. There's no question. I mean, we've been talking about Shea Weber all year. He is not in the class of John Carlson right now. He's just not. And Carlson's already got 52 blocks. Like he's already on pace to maybe get another 150, 160 block season besides all the points he's getting. He's got 43 points. Like, come on, man.
I think it was NHL Network was showing like the leading scorers, and it was like Pasternak, McDavid, McKinnon, Carlson. And it wasn't Eric, it was John. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I'm sorry. Like now we know that scoring defensemen just scoring is not enough. We know that Erik Karlsson has scored tons of points, and he didn't win the Norris in some of those years. We've seen Mike Green in the past do the same thing. So points does not equal winning a Norris solely, but Karlsson is not just scoring points. He's playing at both ends of the ice.
He really is. And, Weber will in that final voting. There's no question, but he doesn't really stand a chance. He just doesn't.
Yes,
I'm very happy today.
Yes, I was gonna say, everybody's commenting on the cat. Cats, it's like we're gonna play Cat Scratch Fever at the end of the show.
There you go.
Now Tampa Bay bounces back after a terrible game against the Islanders with a 2-1 win in Florida, and I had a number. I didn't see the picture. I didn't see the photo, but somebody commented on how empty it was in Sunrise for the Florida Tampa game. And I'm like, okay, it's a Tuesday night in Sunrise. Of course it's empty. Mike Harrington of the Buffalo News posted pictures of the game last night in Buffalo. The weather was fine. It was the Stanley Cup champion Blues. It was Ryan O'Reilly coming back, who got booed every time he touched the puck. Sabres come home after a 3-game road trip where they won 3 of a possible 6 points, so it wasn't bad. And there was maybe, I would think, 12,000 people in the stands. I mean, I don't know if there's something about Tuesday nights or if the NHL is just a weekend event in some cities, but it really was bad.
I mean, again, we talk about Florida. Here are the bottom dwellers in attendance, and it's no surprise. Ottawa, the New York Islanders, Florida, Arizona, New Jersey. There's no surprises there. It doesn't matter how good Florida is doing. They might show up for the playoffs. If they make the playoffs, they might get full stands for that. This Florida team, it won't matter until they're in the playoffs. Like they've proven time and time again, They're not showing up.
The only games that they probably sell out during the regular season, and we know why teams schedule their Florida trip in January and February, is when Montreal, because there's a lot of snowbirds, and Toronto.
And Rangers gets a lot of fans.
Rangers and Buffalo, too, because there's a lot of people who left Buffalo who live down in Florida. So, yeah, that makes sense. But, yeah, and then that honestly, at a certain point, the league is going to have to say, okay, if we can't get like at least 12, 13,000 people. I mean, you're talking about, I mean, maybe they sold 8. From what I understand, it looked like there was about 4,000 people in the stands. And that's, I think, particularly defeating for the league when it's Tampa, Florida. This is a rivalry that's never really sparked up. They've never faced each other in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that interstate rivalry is not, it's not like Florida State in college football or anything like that. There's no blood there.
I agree. There is no blood there. There's no cross-state rivalry or whatever you want to call it. I'm looking it up now. The 2 worst teams, home percentage-wise, are Florida and the Islanders. Now, if you want to use the issue with the Islanders and how they were selling tickets, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But Florida, 76%, man. I mean, Ottawa's 60% because they have a bigger building.
Well,
actually,
I mean, the list that you just read off with the Islanders, it's the building situation. With New Jersey, I don't know about Newark. They've never really drawn big in Newark, but they've never really been a success when they've been in Newark. So I don't know if that, if it's hand in glove, if it's just because they're not a good team, or it's the fact that, they moved from East Rutherford to Newark and people still don't want to go to Newark.
Yeah, Florida averages 12,985. Ottawa's averaging 11,635. So Ottawa's the worst. And then you could take your point. I'll make Florida the second worst because I'll give the Islanders a little bit of a break, but still should be doing better than that.
Yeah, and Ottawa's situation is asinine with that building. I think it's like 15 miles outside of the city.
Yeah, it's brutal. But it's a Canadian market. Just imagine a Canadian market doing this poorly.
Yeah, but this is a Canadian market where they had empty seats in playoff games.
I know.
People outside of the Scotiabank Arena for a playoff game would kill each other.
Look, you want to see the most shocking thing that really never gets talked about? The 19th ranked home team right now in attendance, New York Rangers.
Yeah, but wasn't that expected as part of, the letter and the rebuild?
I guess. Number 14. Here's a good one.
This is with the Mets. Sorry, this is with the Brooklyn Nets, the Knicks, the the Devils all sucking, and the Jets and Giants. There should be like if a team. I think the Rangers are pretty much playing up to expectations after all the changes that they made. You would think that their tickets would be better than that. 19.
Yeah, I would think so, but again, I do think it's the corporate crowd and the fact that they're not all bought into it. But look, like the Flyers are 14th. 14th.
Middle of the pack. Yeah.
The Bruins are 15th.
Well, who are the top ones?
Okay. Chicago is number 1.
And that's with a team that's disappointing.
Right. Montreal's number 2.
No shock.
Toronto's number 3.
No shock.
And Chicago and Toronto are running over 100%. There are a few other teams that are too at home. Detroit is 4th, surprising.
Yeah, let's just say maybe they've sold the tickets, but the people
sold them.
Yeah, but the people
know what's sold. Yeah. Tampa, Vancouver, the Capitals, the Penguins, Calgary, Vegas, Dallas, St. Louis, Colorado. So for Montreal Montreal and Toronto are like the gold standard of the Canadian markets. And Vancouver is 6th and Calgary is 9th.
And Toronto's got to have the highest ticket prices of all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I just remember that a few years ago, somebody had bought Florida Panthers upper deck tickets for like $90 for the year, or something, some ridiculous amount like that. $90 Canadian is what, if you're lucky, is what you get a purple at the Scotiabank Arena. So the demand is ridiculous, and you wouldn't have people walking around the arena at say 10:30 in the morning scalping tickets if the demand wasn't really high.
Yeah. Now look at this. I mean, even Carolina is 24th. Carolina's a really good team. 24th.
Well, there was a boost of attendance in Carolina after the Cup win in 2006, and then dropped off after 3 years, and it's never come back.
Buffalo 21st.
Well, I'm sorry. All the team has accomplished over the last 5 years is get a couple number one overall picks. The team has been terrible. And the fan base, this is an educated fan base who says, I will come back when you win.
Yeah.
If you don't win, go to hell.
Nashville's 17th.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a drop off there.
And Vegas is 10th now. So there's been a little bit of a drop off on some teams, but some good surprises on some others. Like the Chicago one is good that their fans are still there with them because they are a great fan base. So
and it's not because they're not on cable anymore.
Right.
All right. So I'll just touch on a couple games here. Jets win again, 5-1 over the Red Wings. The Red Wings are terrible. No shock there. The Jets right now, I mean, it's surprising that they've been able to survive the absence of Byfuglien, the injuries to guys like Morrissey and now Kulikov. Their defense has been decimated by injuries and absences. They're scoring they're scoring at a regular pace, and they're getting great goaltending out of Hellebuyck. I mean, I'm a little surprised they've been able to have the success that they've had.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised in Hellebuyck. We both agreed that, he could be pretty great and would have to be this year. We also said that we did feel like their forwards could make up some of the slack, and I do indeed think that's happening. Right now, Neil Pionk's got 16 points, and he's a +8. Now, the +8 part is surprising. So right now, he's doing better than expected. Point-wise, he's a little better than expected, but he's right. He's just a little ahead of last year. He is an offensive guy, but is he still, weak in the crease? He still has issues, but he's done well for them. It's not like he's done Jacob Trouba well all around, but he's been better defensively than he was with the Rangers. So right now, those things have really helped them, but Hellebuck's been the biggest reason. And again, they do when you have a guy like Blake Wheeler, that is like having another defenseman out there. Like those kinds of guys really do help you on both ends.
And as for the Red Wings, the funny thing is, this is only going to get worse because they're going to dump players at the deadline. They're going to trade if they're healthy. They're going to trade Mike Green. They're going to trade Trevor Daley, the teams who need defense. They're probably, if there are teams interested in veteran forwards that they want to take a year or two, they'll trade Abdelkader. They'll trade Glenn Denning. It's not going to be scorched earth because I think they'll have to have somebody to stay there, but they're going to trade some of these guys to get assets. And Yzerman, if he's smart, will probably end up being, doing what Lamoriello did in Toronto in 2016 or 2015 and 2016 when he took over and take salaries on for assets. I mean, that's a smart way to operate.
Yzerman is smart. Right now they're at a -62. So the last time I looked at it, they picked up like a -9 on the differential. I think 112 is going to be easy now. I think they're going beyond that.
Jesus. The Anaheim Ducks beat the Wild 3-2 in a shootout. I didn't see any of that game, so I'm just mentioning this score.
I want to take a couple of seconds of it. The one thing I took out of that game from the Wild perspective, it does seem like Zuccarello is locked in now, dialed in, and that's helped them.
Now, did you see any of the Kings Rangers? 3-1 Kings over the Rangers.
A little bit. I mean, they weren't playing great defensively. The one thing you could take out of that game, Mark Stahl is not mobile anymore. Mark Stahl is now that defenseman where he looks like Hal Gill around the goalie. Right here's how Hal Gill used to do it. He'd stay right around the goalie. He'd move a little to his right, a little to his left. Sometimes he would try and block something with his arm on the eventual goal, but he can't get the puck out. Does that sound like Hal Gill at the end?
Hal Gill was good at penalty killing because you don't have to move.
Right.
He's just
what I'm saying is on a normal sequence, Hal Gill was stuck in that one spot, right? He never moved.
Right.
That's Mark Stahl now.
Yeah, and more than likely, this will be this will probably be the last year you see Stahl. I'll bet you they will buy him out at the end of this year.
Yeah.
Vegas beats Chicago 5-1. Marc-Andre Fleury back in net for Vegas, which is important because they had played Subban a great deal the last couple of weeks, and he did okay. That's the thing. I don't think he did terribly.
No, I think he did the best he could. I think he is an average NHL goalie.
Yeah, which honestly, most teams would take an average NHL goalie when it comes to backups. I know.
Well, the Leafs would.
I know. I was going to say I know one team wearing blue and white that would. The Calgary Flames beat Arizona 5-2. Flames have won 6 in a row under Jeff Ward.
That I was watching that game. That they really look. I mean, they look good. Nobody's talking about trading Gaudreau anymore. That nonsense is gone.
Yeah, I mean, it was just total crap.
Yeah, Monahan looks great. They're back to where we thought they could be if they got decent goaltending, because everything else is there. It's not like they lacked. They're like the St. Louis Blues of last year. They didn't lack personnel. They lacked a little in net, and the Blues fixed that by Binnington. These guys got a different coach, and right now that message is helping them.
What I found interesting, and it was only like a little, like I was checking out that game basically on NHL Network when they were doing cut-ins, and they were playing Gaudreau. They weren't playing. It wasn't just Gaudreau and Monahan. I don't know if it was extra shifts or they had moved Gaudreau to a lower line, but they had Gaudreau playing with Derek Ryan and like Zach Ronaldo.
Zach Ronaldo scored last night.
Yeah, he had I know he had an assist on one of the goals, but
he scored a goal,
okay.
And I did put on Twitter that was a clear sign of the apocalypse.
and also Lucic was not playing fourth line. I mean, he scored a couple goals recently. Not to say that all of a sudden he's back or whatever, but yeah, he had a goal last night. So I mean, I think that's 3 for him now. I'm just
the guy who's really been a spark, and I've talked about him for a few years. That he hasn't been able to break through. He's only 21. Is Dylan Dubé, and he's got 7 points in 11 games. It's nice to see because he's better than an AHLer. He's a point a game in the AHL. He just needed a chance. He's got really good hands. He's got good speed. He's smart. That's really good because they needed additional help getting goals while these guys were some of their top guys were struggling. Now they're rolling a little better. So good for them.
The Stars, with their first game under Rick Bowness, win 2-0 over the Devils. I saw the 2 goals. I feel sorry for Mackenzie Blackwood because the Devils' defense is brutal.
I watched. I couldn't, after like a period and a half, you just can't watch anymore. It's like torture.
I have to ask this question because somebody, I saw it in my Twitter feed. I don't know if it was somebody asking me a question or somebody asking. It was like a conversation with 3 or 4 different people. At this point with the Devils situation, would you be, or would Ray Shero be interested in trading PK Subban and retaining some salary to move him someplace?
No, I don't think so. I think Subban needs to have a better offseason. I think maybe he took his offseason too lightly. He was doing a lot of videos. I don't know how his training was. I think he can get it back. I don't think I don't think they will do that.
I'll be careful because I don't want people to misconstrue what I'm saying, but I saw a lot of video with him and Lindsey Vonn, and I'm just saying, because they're getting married, and that's all great. I'm happy for them, but I'm saying it's almost like, okay, that's great, but how about your career? You're a $9 million. You're the highest or second highest paid, I think third highest paid now behind Carlson and behind Drew Doughty.
Yeah.
And now I think Yossi has matched him. You're a former Norris Trophy winner. You're an all-star. A team that is depending on you has traded for you. I don't get any kind of sense that he's really sort of putting it all out there. I mean, I think his play this year, I saw him, or I saw the Devils play the Sabres the last game before Hines got fired. I barely noticed PK Subban. And honestly, there's not a game that I can say in his career where with Nashville or with Montreal where he wasn't noticeable. And
they can't afford to trade PK Subban They don't have that kind of defense core. You'll find a role for PK Subban next year very easily. There's no way in hell I would ever do that because I think they're setting themselves up for a bigger failure if they try and do that because they don't have enough in their system to overcome it. Like they just don't. But good for the Stars. I think the Stars,
I'm just looking at the aspect of him. If he's no longer a $9 million player and he's more like a $5.5 million player. I mean, with them, it doesn't really matter because they're not a cap team, but I'm just saying, I think they got him on the assumption that he is that like top 10 NHL defenseman. And so far this year, he has not looked like a top 10 NHL defenseman.
No, I mean, I totally agree with that. The weird thing is they put Heischer on the IR and they brought up McLeod and they didn't even play McLeod. I kind of wonder now if McLeod will be a part of a Taylor Hall trade and they're going to just sort of give up on him.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a possibility because there has been a lot of talk that the Hall deal could be something more than just a prospect NHL player pick for that Shiro is open. I think it was Elliot Friedman that said that Shiro is open to a bigger deal. We've heard Miles Wood's name be floated out there. We've heard in terms of possible trade. McLeod. I don't consider McLeod a failure yet, but if he's
not a failure and he's got speed and maybe he just needs a change, maybe he needs to be in a more offensive-minded organization, and that would help him.
Yeah. Okay, a couple other games. The Carolina Hurricanes defeat the Edmonton Oilers 6-3. I say that with a
wipe that smile off your face, man.
I say that with a lilt in my voice and a little bit of glee. Okay.
Just evil.
I watched a lot of the Edmonton Buffalo game on Sunday, and it didn't do anything other than reinforce my belief that Edmonton may not make the playoffs. And I say that because when Draisaitl and McDavid were on the ice, it didn't matter who else was on the ice with them. I think it was Cassian most of the time. They generated tons of offensive chances, and they were almost impossible to control.
Yeah.
When anybody else was on the ice, the Sabres dominated.
Yeah.
Dominated. And the Sabres are not a team that dominates anybody usually. And they got okay goaltending at times from Mike Smith in that game, but they ended up losing in overtime. Last night, you bring up the Dougie Hamilton goal here.
I mean, it's crazy. He scored from just inside the red line at center ice. What is that, like 50 feet?
Yeah.
And Peter Tessier, huh?
Like 100 feet, isn't it?
Well, the whole ice is 110 feet. So,
yeah, okay.
So I think it's like 50-something feet.
I thought it was 200 by.
Oh, maybe it is 200. Maybe you're right.
By 85.
So it is. Yeah. So it is 100, right? So he's out 100 feet and he scores a goal. Now, Peter said that Hamilton juked him and kicked him into it. I'm not sure about that.
I don't care if he does a pirouette.
I know.
Ice.
The guy with the puck, your job is to stop it.
It's a head fake. I don't care if it's a head fake from outside the. If you lose it in the lights, okay.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, your job is to stop the puck. He did not do that, and he was foolish doing it. He had like a .713 save percentage. He's had 2 or 3 clunkers in the last 5 games. He's starting to lose some steam, and this team is desperate for a trade. They have to be because they can't go on with the lineup they have. They know that too.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Mikko Koskinen here. And the thing is, Carolina jumped out to a 3-0 lead in that game. Edmonton comes back with 3, ties it at 3-3 early in the third period. And then Carolina scores three goals in the span of 5.5 minutes.
But I'm going to tell you how it was portrayed. Edmonton clawed back, Mike. They clawed back and they tied it up. Yeah, but then you lost by 3 goals.
Right.
If you'd have lost 4-3, I'd say, hey, you know what? That's not a bad loss. You lost by 3 goals.
Right. They are brutal defensively. And that's surprising for a Tippett team, but they are. And
I spoke to Arnold Norris after the game. You know what the quote was? We came back in this game. Early in the season, we came back and won a lot of those games. We have to keep doing that. And we have to get off this trend of not doing that. Something to that degree. And it's like, yeah, that's a great hope. But you know what? Try not being down in those games like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think they can. I just don't think they have the defense or the goaltending for it.
Nashville beat San Jose 3-1. The Predators, I mean, I guess they pulled a little bit out of their crash dive that they had, but I've heard a lot of chatter about Laviolette, not tied to any of the accusations stuff that has happened with other coaches, but just the fact that, he's a coach that we know has a time frame that after a while he starts to get tuned out. And when Nashville was going through that long slump, that was a possibility that his time may be numbered. I don't know. I mean,
I don't think so. I'm not really feeling that yet, but obviously Laviolette did a good job of getting ahead of the, I don't know how many years later, Ville Leno comments, and he explained everything, and I think he did a good job of that. So I think that's died down. I think that's probably helped the team. End of the day, they're a good team. They have enough. Do they have enough to win a Stanley Cup? Only if Pekka Rinne gets ridiculously hot. Otherwise, they're going to go out round 2, round 3, right? I mean, we're all in agreement about that, I'm sure.
Yeah. As for the Sharks, I mean, they've clawed back after that horrible start. I think now they're probably in the mix for second or third in the Pacific,
which is a great comeback there. I mean, it really is.
Right. Or a wild card spot, depending on how the West breaks. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, I think that and I don't think that their playoff hopes rest in the collapse of Arizona or Edmonton. I think they can make the playoffs without those happening. But I expect Arizona to come back to the pack a little bit, because I still think that if they don't get that additional scoring, or if they don't replace Demers on defense, I mean, they called up Robbie Russo to replace Demers on the blue line.
Yeah, he's physical, Robbie Russo. That's why they did that. But
yeah, but I saw him with Detroit. I don't think he's an NHL guy. I mean, they got Aaron Ness. I mean, they're the bottom third of their defense or bottom half of their defense right now is not great.
It's not great. And here are the last 5 games for Jones: 2 goals, 4 goals, 4 goals, 5 goals, 2 goals. So. Yeah, he's still not having a great year. He's doing a little better. They need to help him on the blue line, or they're not going anywhere.
Yeah. And now for our Leaf portion of the pod. The Leafs win their second game in a row, 4-1 over Vancouver. It was a very entertaining game, but for in my mind the wrong reasons, because Leafs got up 2-0. I think they played first half, maybe even the first 2 periods of the game, played pretty well. And then in the third period, it was the Freddie Anderson show. He had to save their bacon a number of times. There were 4 breakaways. When you're trying to preserve a 2-0 lead on the road and you give up 4 breakaways, something is amiss.
Well, how many power plays did
Toronto or I'm doing us. I think probably 3. I'll check the box.
Yeah, I mean, that's also trouble, because they were getting some glorious chances on those power plays with Besser on one side and Pettersson on the other.
2 penalties.
But you know what? Anderson had a good game. There's no question about it. Tavares had a good game, scoring a couple goals.
Yeah, Tavares had 2 goals and an assist. He's up to 12 goals, and he missed a number of games with a broken finger. So I think he's playing pretty well. Matthews with a goal. He's got 19 now, so he's in the top 5 of the league. So
how did William Nylander play, Mike?
I'm sorry?
How did William Nylander do? I didn't see him.
Well, neither did I, except when he gave up the puck to Brock Besser on a breakaway. And that's the thing. It's like, I've made this argument a number of times. I know you just put this up on a tee for me to hit it out of the park. William Nylander, when he plays well, is a difference maker. The problem is he plays well about 15 games a year. I think he's an Alexei Kovalev type of player.
Yeah.
And that, that's okay if you got him on a 1-year or 2-year contract. That's okay if you're paying him, middle of the road money, but he's being paid almost $7 million a year for another 5 years. And that, I'm sorry, it's just not good enough.
The problem with Nylander is, if we're coming down to the end of the game and we need a goal and you have his line on the ice, how often is he going to come through for you? And right now I don't get the feeling it's even 50%. It's not
his coming through is setting up Matthews.
Right, but how often is he even going to do that?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to say that he's not going to be able to do that, because he is a good playmaker at times. It's just what I don't understand is, and I'm not a player. I've never been a player. I've just observed this game since I was a kid, and I know that there are players out there that are extremely talented, where work ethic and consistency are a challenge. And it's not just Nylander. I mean, his dad was like that when he was in the NHL. There were players like Kovalev, like Alexander Semin, and I'm just rattling off a number of players who had immense talent, but there was not that drive to do well every game. And it's
what is the difference? I have to ask this question.
Yeah.
Because me being a fair-minded bystander, in 2018, Nylander had 8 game-winning goals. Right now, I know what the game-winning goal stat. You can start picking that apart if you want, but it's still a stat.
He had 61 points. I think it was 22 or 23 goals.
20 goals, 61 points, 8 game winners.
Right.
Okay. He had no game winners last year, no game winners this year. Like, what happened to the clutch ability of his? Because he did have it, and he doesn't have it right now.
And he's got 11 goals this year, so it's not like he's not scoring.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, go to another sport. That's the stuff we heard about A-Rod. It's like A-Rod hit 50 home runs, but were any of them like when the game was tied in the 9th inning? It's like it's the clutch gene. It's like I'm not going to say that about it. Like, I'm trying not to destroy William Nylander, because I do think he's a talented player. It's just he's infuriating to watch at times if you're a fan of the Leafs, and I've talked to a lot of them who have the same opinion that I have, is that he's a guy who could make a difference, and he has the talent level to make a difference, but he just doesn't make a difference a lot. And sometimes he shoots his own team in the foot. Well, like last night, where he made a pass up the middle to, I think it was Aberg, and the pass was so bad that it banged off Aberg's skate, went the other way, and Besser had a breakaway, and only because Anderson was standing on his head did they not score a goal at that point. And they were up 2-0. It's like, you cannot play like that. I mean, they're playing a more wide open style under Keefe, and I get that, because they have probably more offensive weapons than 95% of the teams in this league. But at a certain point of the game, you've got to be able to shut things down. And I don't know. That's where I don't know if they can shut things down at certain points in the game. And if they can't shut it down, then in the playoffs, when it comes to that point of the game, they're in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to find the stat that shows, like even go-ahead goals.
Yeah.
Like when you're scoring to put your team ahead. And right now, I'm not able to do it. If somebody in the chat room can do it, look up what Nylander does for that, because
Nylander's last goal was against Buffalo in the second game. I think it was the Saturday game, and it was the opening goal. It was 1-0, and then Ristolainen tied it, and then Tavares scored in overtime. So it was the first goal, but it wasn't a goal. It wasn't a goal that, I mean, yes, it's in a game that's 2-1. If you score one of the 2 goals, it's a.
All right, I do have some numbers. So Nylander in a tied game, 5-on-5, has 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points. Nylander, 5-on-5 in a close game, has 9 points, 3 goals, 6 assists. Just plain old 5-on-5. Hold on, I'm waiting on my computer here.
Yeah,
plain old 5-on-5. He's got 17 points. So 8 of his goals are sort of like your regular 5-on-5.
Mm-hmm.
But then in close and tight games, it drops for him. It definitely does.
Now, we'll take some questions in the chat here to finish out the show, and because we're talking Toronto, there's some questions here. Jerkball T.O., I love the name, says, Leafs better off moving CC and Janssen for cap relief. Okay, CC is an expiring contract. Later in the year, if they think that there's a defenseman like Liljegren or Sandin who can come up and play in the top 6, I don't think they want to do it with Sandin, because I don't think they want to burn the first year of the ELC. They played him 6 games. He's probably going to the World Juniors.
I mean, is he? I mean, right now they won't even let him go to camp.
Yeah, I think he's going. I think Dubas will let him go.
Right, but why not let him go to camp? How many Marlies games is he really going to miss going to camp?
Probably 3 or 4.
Is it that the deal, really?
Yeah, I mean, the other factor here,
I'll
Russ.
still take him. Don't get me wrong. Obviously,
the other factor here is Sandin got hurt in the World Juniors last year. He missed over a month with an elbow injury.
Are they just trying to limit the participation?
Yeah, I think they're trying to limit the exposure of him potentially getting hurt. Maybe that's it. So, but
because they need him. I was just writing a preview, not a preview, but I was pointing out some of the players, and they need him. Team Sweden needs him.
Yeah, I think they'll let him go. But as for CC, the thing is, CC's played a little better moving down to the bottom pairing. He was misused by Babcock playing him on the top pairing with Riley. That was just dumb. He's not a top pairing defenseman. He never was with Ottawa. I think he's better suited for a 4 or a 5-6. And I
think if you slotted him in there for next year or the year after, you gave him a deal, he'd be so much better.
Yeah, but the thing is that he's making 4.5 now, and they are so tight up against the cap that if they think that internally they have a defenseman who could play at the same level as CC, or if they can find somebody who makes less.
You could say what you want about Cody CC.
I don't think it's
I'm not saying you. I'm saying people.
Yes.
It's not easy to replace a guy like that. It's not.
Right. It's not. And you remember, they got him because they wanted to get rid of Zaitsev's 5 remaining years. So if the cost is 1 year of Cody CC, that's not terrible. And I don't think he's a terrible defenseman, although the analytics people hate his guts.
Whatever.
Now, Janssen, and this is the thing. If you're going to trade Andreas Janssen for cap relief or trade Andreas Janssen to get a backup goaltender, that's just dumb. Again, it's like, this guy is I think he's at least a top 9. He scored, I believe he scored over 20 goals last year, and then they signed him to the big contract. Mm-hmm. He's a capable winger. He's feisty. He's not big. He's not a bad defender.
Acceleration. There's things to like about him.
Yeah, and so I think the contract that they signed him to was fair. It's not a bad number. I mean, if you're going to try to clear cap space, then I think CC might be the way to go. But I'm not, that again, who's going to want CC in the sense of maybe you get a team like Detroit or a team like New Jersey to take him as a salary dump, and then you have to give up a draft pick to get them to take him.
Yeah.
And that's tough. So Bardicus asked, what do I think of the pairing of Riley and Barry? I think it's better than Riley and CC. I think I think the best weapon of that pairing has is the fact that they are so offensively gifted that other teams will be scared of them in the sense of they won't be on the attack.
Chances.
Yeah, they won't. They won't
go the other way.
Right, exactly. I mean, they could turn a turnover into a breakaway or go the other way, and that's a scary proposition. It's sort of like, I'm trying to think of a comparative, Coffee Huddy back in the day. I mean, let's see here. Thomas Boyle says the obvious: if Anderson gets hurt, it's over. Right, and that was the point I was trying to make with this lunkhead and Eck. A couple days ago is like, if Anderson gets hurt,
I'm not going there, man. I'm so staying out of this.
Okay, their season is done if Anderson gets hurt because Anderson is their number 1 goalie. They could use an upgrade as the number 2. And I talked to somebody yesterday. Just let me finish.
Yeah.
I talked to somebody yesterday at the Sabres game, a scout, and he said, because the names out there are Jari and Georgiev, and that person said basically, okay, right now, while the Rangers are still in the race, while Pittsburgh is still in the race for a wild card or a playoff spot, they're not trading a goalie, especially to Toronto, because Toronto's in competition with them for a playoff spot.
But the Rangers still have Shesterkin. Like they do have a guy that could slot right in, though.
Right. So I will be surprised if they make a trade for a backup in the East, unless it's a team like New Jersey or Detroit who is clearly out of it. So there you go. All right. Let's see any more questions here.
We're not taking any more Toronto questions.
No more Toronto questions. If anybody has any non-Toronto questions, I'm not sure what Eichel is head over heel. Yeah, well, let me ask this because somebody brings up Eichel. I heard on Buffalo radio this morning that now they believe because Eichel's playing great. Don't get me wrong. He's playing at the level that I think we thought he could play at. But they started saying, well, Eichel is an MVP candidate.
I think if they stay steady in the playoff race, he would be. He's not yet. I know he's sixth in scoring, but not yet. No.
Yeah, I would say that he's an MVP candidate if they make the playoffs. But
we don't know because we can't vote when they're in the playoffs. But if as a voter, if I see they're heading towards the playoffs because of his play,
right,
then yes. But also, he had been playing when they've been playing like crap too.
Right. So is he a better MVP candidate than McKinnon, McDavid, Pasternak, Marchand?
No.
Yeah, none of them.
No.
So I think he's like right now he's like sixth or seventh.
Yeah, I think he's sixth.
And that's not bad, but I'm just saying, I think he'd have to carry the Sabres on his back a la Taylor Hall a few years ago with the Devils. Yeah. And I think it would take that kind of effort to get him the MVP. All right, let's see here. Let's see. Who could the Oilers target for help on offense?
I mean, it'd be helpful if you spelled offense right. No, I'm just kidding.
That's the Canadian way, isn't it?
I know. Who could they get? I mean, they could get Taylor Hall, but they're not going to get him.
No. If we're talking UFA, Pajot might help them.
Pajot would be a great pickup. That's a good pickup.
If they could get New Jersey to retain 50% of the salary.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a forward. They could get Mike Green.
Yeah.
Mike Green would help offensively for sure, because then that would take Darnell Nurse out of some of these key offensive situations where he's not a terrific offensive defenseman. He's okay.
Yeah, and with I think with Nurse.
If you have Clefbaum and Green, that helps you.
Well, they have two. I mean, they could end up putting, if they got Green could be on their bottom pairing,
right?
Which would be limiting him 5-on-5 and having him on the power play, which is the perfect scenario.
Yes.
But I think they need forward help because I think their wingers are simply not good enough. So, I mean, if you could get New Jersey to, and maybe he's done, but if you could get New Jersey to retain 50% of his salary and get Wayne Simmons, that might help.
I don't think it's going to help them though.
Would they go Alex Galchenyuk?
No.
Yeah, so I mean, there are a number of free agent rental forwards. I think they would go down that road. I don't think they want to lock themselves up on something that's a long.
I mean, look, at some point, maybe give Tyler Benson a call up. I mean, really, he's leading Bakersfield in scoring. He's not a point a game guy, but nobody is on that team. I mean, Yamamoto's in the mud there, man. He's only got 11 points, but he's only played 17 games, so he's obviously got an injury of some sort.
Yeah, or
but the team's not great.
Would it be to the point that they would include Yamamoto in a deal to get a forward?
Yeah, it's possible.
And
they could make that mistake because I still think he's one of those guys that you put him with more skilled guys, like in the NHL, he plays better.
Right. Flamester asks, is Goudreau on the market? I don't think so.
Nope.
And if he is, I think that Brad Treliving is making a big mistake.
That'd be like me putting my Tom Seaver rookie card on the market. Am I doing it?
No. Interesting idea, but I don't agree with it. Healthy Kev A says trade offer Nylander for Hall. Toronto gets better and solves salary issues in future years. Jersey gets a young talent on a long-term contract. I don't think that's feasible for one simple reason. I think Dubas's reputation is tied up with Nylander in the sense that if you're giving up Nylander for a rental,
you got to have a player to come for years.
Right. You're admitting that you made a mistake. And I don't think that they're admitting that they made a mistake. And I don't think it was a mistake in the sense that you make some sort of commitment to Nylander. But I think eventually what's going to happen, if they're going to trade him next summer, which is not a guarantee, and a lot of people think it's not going to happen, they need to get a defenseman out of it. They need to get somebody who's tied up long-term like Nylander is.
Yeah, I mean, if Ray Shero got that offer, he'd make that offer the minute it came out on the phone.
In about 2 seconds. Yeah.
I mean, look, Taylor Hall's barely trying. I mean, let's be honest. He
He doesn't want to get hurt. I think he doesn't want to get hurt.
He's playing out there, but he ain't playing great.
All right, let's see here. I think Flamester's talking. Are you talking Jason Zucker and not
Jason Zucker? I don't know who Mike Zucker is.
Mike Zook? I remember Mike Zook from the St. Louis Blues back in the 80s. Zooklier attack.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the Anthony says Brown, Kopitar, Carter on the hot seat. Okay.
Does it matter?
No, I mean, first of all, Kopitar's not in the hot seat because nobody's going to trade for him at $10 million. And I don't think
nobody wants Jeff Carter. He'd be traded already.
Or the fact that he's got the no movement clause. And Dustin Brown, I think Dustin Brown, honestly, if he keeps playing like this for the rest of this year, I think he might retire because he's just.
I mean, he did score last night. I think I saw him score a goal, but yeah, he could at some point just drop off.
God, I just have to put this up. Is it me or
see? You can't even hold to it. Go ahead, man.
Is it me or is Toronto only good in baseball, soccer, and basketball? What does Toronto know about hockey? Okay, of course, this is probably from a Habs fan who hasn't taken a shower in about 6 months.
Can we just not resort to name calling, please?
Yes. Well, that wasn't name calling. It was just something about body odor. Michael, not me. Does Taylor Toffoli get traded? Yes.
Yes.
I think that will be the case. Let's see here. A couple more. Oh, no, that's Jerry Zucker, not Jay. This Zucker is a movie producer. That's the guy who produced Airplane and Ghost. I know who. And Frenchie said I showered this morning. Touche there, Frenchie. Thank you. Goodness. Let's see. One or two more questions. Is there a market for Toffoli?
Yeah. Tyler Toffoli is a proven goal scorer. So yes, there's a market.
Yeah. Now we'll end on this. What do you think the market is? Because Toffoli right now, I'm looking up his stats right now. I don't think he's got a ton of points this year. I know that he was healthy scratched at one point. Okay. Tyler Toffoli in 31 games has 7 goals, 8 assists. So we're talking about probably on pace for 30 to 35 points.
Right, which is a little low for him.
Right.
I mean, honestly, if he gets traded to, I don't know, let's say Pittsburgh wanted him. I think Pittsburgh would give you a fairly good roster player and a 3rd-round pick. And by a fairly good roster player, I mean somebody who is playing now that they just don't have in their future plans.
I was going to say, how about I'll read off a couple names. Zach Aston Reese.
Yeah.
Sam Lafferty, Dominic Simone.
Yeah, I think if you got Aston Reese or Simone and like a 3rd-rounder, that's pretty good return because those guys are useful NHL players. Right. And Simone actually, both of them have gotten better. If you think about it, both those players have gotten better.
Yeah, so that was. I mean, I think, and if you're talking there's been consistent rumors about Boston.
Yeah, Boston would probably give you like Senyshyn,
right,
and a draft pick,
right, and they've got a lot of prospects. So
yeah, and Senyshyn would be a good guy to get and throw him in and see what you can get out of him.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I would not lie and say I think the deadline is going to be packed full of a lot of transactions. I think there'll be some leading up to it.
I'm going to be out interviewing squirrels in X Yard again.
and checking the rink.
The rink is a non-entity.
I hope it's non-existent because
I don't think the rink's going this year.
Oh my God. There's so many poles and nets and all this stuff. It's just.
That was one of the great moments going out to that half dilapidated, half frozen rink. That was fantastic.
All right. Great show. We will be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Russ Cohen, I am Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember,